just imagine if you guys spent, like you said before, $50,000, $100,000 getting.
I love you, John.
Getting a PhD in psychology, and then there's people spouting psychology who got no degree whatsoever, and they're making $1 million a year.
I'm going to quote Nick Krauser, who is, I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's old school PUA guy. Nick used to say this, is that the red pill and game and pickup artistry has done more for understanding intersectional dynamics and human social sexuality in the 15 years, 20 years that it's been around than psychology or sociology has been able to do in like hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Because the guys go out and because there were certain ethical considerations that, social scientists and psychologists had, like experimental psychologists had, that they simply couldn't go do, right? One of the reasons why I think that we hold like David Buss in such high esteem is because he was doing things that nobody would really like organize to go do.
Sure.
Because it wasn't ethical, or if it wasn't something that people would really have maybe even the cultures that he was going to go and survey would have been a little bit put off by some of the questions he was asking them, because there's also the cultural aspect of it as well. But now we live in a society once again where the genie's out of the bottle and the toothpaste ain't going back in the fucking toothpaste tube again. And to say that, oh, well, only us qualified academicians, are the ones that ought to be talking about this stuff. Well, fuck you. Because the guys who went out there during the early years, during the mid 2000s, went out there into the clubs, went out there into the field, did the field work, came back, said, you know what, this is working, this isn't working, and we ought to go back okay, it's hypothesis, it's just the scientific method, is all it is. It's like, did this work? This part of this hypothesis worked, but this didn't seem to replay in the field, or somebody from Johannesburg, South Africa does something that a guy in Los Angeles does, that a guy in Japan does, that a guy in, Estonia does, and they all compare notes. And the problem is that we're at the point where we're at right now, and they're even having this conversation as a result of 15 to 20 years of these guys doing this in the first place.
It's so funny. Part of the thing that maybe Chris Williamson is not aware of this, but like his whole platform exists because an opening was created because this discussion was had by people outside of academics.
Right.
Meaning, like, and I'm not just talking about Fresh and Fit. We go all the way back.
She doesn't exist
without
the
we could go all the way back to,
and nobody would be talking. No one would care what she has to say if it hadn't been for pickup artists, if it hadn't been for the blue pill, the red pill, the MGTOW, whatever, everything that's happened in the last. Because I've been a part of it for the last 22 years. And so when I see little cutesy what's her fuck on every goddamn show right now, it's like, you wouldn't exist if it weren't for the guys who came before you.
So to her point, one of the things that happens is when people don't like your point of view, what they say is, I don't agree with you, and everything you believe in causes school shootings. Like that's the sort of mentality.
Yeah.
And one of these situations
and if you keep talking about it, you're going to make things worse.
There are humans that are misogynists. We're absolutely aware of that. And have certain misogynists found a home on certain red pill sites? They have, but there's not red pill people. Like, Rollo is not going out there telling anyone to hate women. Absolutely not at all. And then the other part that happens,
the opposite.
Yeah. And then the other part that happens is when it's when they're like, well, we're going to quote red pill sources, and then it's Pearl Davis, and I'm like, well, I don't know that Pearl really speaks for everybody in this place, and it's just, but it's just, but it's just one of these situations. Like, look, Pearl can speak for Pearl, but my point is, like, the idea that what happens is the media is like, I need to reduce red pill into something that I can hate and attack. Right. So what I'm going to do is say all misogynists go there. Democrats did something very similar. Right. All Trump supporters were racist. Like, they in order to reduce it, to make it very simple for you, they say that. So all these misogynists go into this red pill community, and it's like, no matter what good they did by actually trying to expose things when it came to human nature, that good is outweighed by the fact that the bad was that there were misogynists in the community. And the other part of it, this is very important, it's like, with a lot of these content creators, they want to grow, they want to become viral, they want to become influential. And if red pill content creators are more influential than them, then they need to kind of shit on them.
Well, yeah. And then I also want to point out the academia side of all this as well. So let's just say, for sake of argument, you go, and I don't know if she's got a doctorate, or this is Dr. Sadia Khan or whatever her fucking name is. Okay, if you're going to get a doctorate, and I know this because I have a degree in psychology when it comes to like a bachelor's of science in behaviorism, basically. But I do know this is that if you want to make any kind of money in psychology, you have to get your doctorate. There's like, otherwise, if you get a master's, you're going to be a social worker. That's basically what you're, and you went to all that school so you can be a social worker. Well, let's just say for sake of argument, you go to school for what, 8 or 10 years to get your doctorate in psychology. Then you got to go and you want to go into private practice. You can either go into private practice or you can go and teach. Those are really the two things that you can do. So if you go into private practice, you've got to go get malpractice insurance. You've got to go hire somebody to do your secretary. You've got to have a place to go and do it. You've got to have all kinds of insurance. Think about the amount of money and the investment it would take to become a clinical psychologist today. And then you see somebody like John from Modern Life Dating on there who's just like making money hand over
I see what you're saying.
Sitting in a big bubble bath and just like, hey,
so just imagine if you guys spent, like you said before, $50,000, $100,000 getting.
I love you, John.
Getting a PhD in psychology, and then there's people spouting psychology who got no degree whatsoever, and they're making $1 million a year.
And they never had to like take out student loans. They never had to get the insurance. They never had to like pay for a place to go and have a private practice or anything like that. So what happens is people like her have to go out there and become a public figure. They have to go write a book. They have to go do talk shows.
I don't blame her for that. Obviously, she wants to make a living.
No, she has to do what everybody else has to do. And by the way, even if you're a pastor or a minister or a religious figure as well, you have to do the same thing.
Yeah.
You have to have your worship your worship session has to be online. You have to have it on YouTube. You've got to be able to respond to all the people in your parish or your congregation, whatever. It's the same principle. But we're far beyond, and I'm guilty of this. Probably everybody on this podcast is, we're our own personal brands, and we have to go out there and we have to, you appear or you disappear. I get that, but the problem is people like this have put in so much investment in themselves before they even got to this point. Now they're playing catch up to guys like like Chris Williamson or like even Garrett right now, because Garrett hasn't even been doing this that long. She would got people who have put more investment into themselves have to catch up to you.
Exactly.
Yeah, it is part of the thing where they'll look at it like somebody's a psychologist or whatever, and then they see me who's a performance coach, and I don't have the same degrees they do, and yet we're just way more successful.
So how do you get more successful like that? You throw firebombs out.
You throw Molotov
exactly. And who do you go for? The biggest dude on the prison yard.
That's what you go run up the flagpole.
Exactly.
Yes, thank you very much.